3,000 gallons of rainwater. Gone. And the community garden event was tomorrow. I stood there, staring at my empty collection tanks, trying to process what I was seeing. The elaborate system I'd spent months designing and building, the interconnected barrels, the filtration setup, the piping that led to the community garden 2 blocks over, all of it rendered useless in an instant. Water still pooled in the street, evidence of what had happened. My neighbors were already out on their lawns, watching me with a mixture of curiosity and secondhand embarrassment. Just what I needed on a Tuesday morning. "Dave, you okay, man?" Mark from across the street called out. He was still in his bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. "Does it look like I'm okay?" I gestured wildly at my empty tanks. "Someone drained my entire rainwater collection system." "Yeah, I saw that happening yesterday," Mark said, suddenly finding his coffee very interesting. I spun around. "You saw it happening? And you didn't think to, I don't know, call me?" Mark shuffled uncomfortably. "I saw Patricia from the HOA with some guys in uniforms. I figured you knew about it." "Patricia? Patricia Holloway?" My stomach dropped faster than the water level in my tanks. The HOA. Of course. Back inside my house, I spotted the letter on my kitchen counter. The one with the Meadow Creek Estates letterhead that I'd tossed aside yesterday, assuming it was just another reminder about lawn height requirements or trash can placement. I scanned it quickly, my blood pressure rising with each bureaucratic word. Unapproved exterior installations, aesthetic considerations, 48-hour notice, removal of non-compliant structures. I grabbed my phone and dialed the HOA office, pacing around my kitchen while it rang. "Meadow Creek Homeowners Association, this is Jennifer. How may I direct your call?" The voice was professionally cheerful in that way that made me want to scream. "I need to speak with Patricia Holloway immediately." "Miss Holloway is unavailable at the moment. Would you like to leave a message?" "Unavailable? She was available enough to send people to drain my rainwater collection system yesterday." "Sir, Do you have any idea what you people have done? Those tanks supply water to the community garden. The same garden that's having its grand opening with 30 elementary school kids tomorrow?" "Sir, if you'd like to file a formal complaint—" "Oh, I'll file something all right," I muttered. "Please hold while I transfer you to our complaint department." Before I could protest, mind-numbing music flooded my ear. I was just about to hang up when something caught my eye through my living room window. A silver-haired woman in a beige pantsuit, clipboard in hand, taking pictures of my property. Patricia was back. I ended the call and marched outside, my patience evaporating faster than spilled water on Arizona pavement. "Patricia!" I called out, not bothering to hide my irritation. She turned, her expression momentarily surprised before settling into a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Patricia Holloway, early 60s, with more hairspray than personality, and a clipboard that might as well have been an extension of her arm. "Good morning, Mr. Reynolds. I'm just conducting a follow-up inspection to ensure compliance with—" "You drained my tanks," I interrupted, pointing at the empty collection system. "Those garbage containers were in violation of Section 12.4 of the HOA Covenant regarding exterior installations and aesthetic standards." She flipped through papers on her clipboard with the efficiency of someone who'd been annoying people professionally for decades. "These aren't garbage containers, Patricia. This is an ecological water conservation system." "Well, whatever they were, they've been emptied as per Section 12.4 of the HOA Covenant," she replied with a dismissive wave. "You have 48 hours to remove them completely, or you'll face a $500 daily fine." "Do you have any idea what those tanks were for?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Unsightly water hoarding, from what I could tell," she sniffed. "Creates mosquito breeding grounds. Very unsanitary." Those tanks supplied the community garden during the drought. You know, the garden that the HOA approved last year. The one that's having its grand opening tomorrow with 30 elementary school kids and a news crew. For a split second, Patricia's confident facade flickered. I wasn't aware of any connection to the garden. Exactly. You weren't aware. You didn't ask. You just decided that my rainwater collection system violated your precious aesthetic standards and had it emptied without even talking to me first. Patricia straightened her already rigid posture. The notice was delivered yesterday morning. It's not my fault if you didn't read it. My phone rang in my pocket. I pulled it out to see Sarah's number, the elementary school teacher who'd coordinated the garden project with her class. I have to take this, I told Patricia, who looked offended that I'd interrupt our conversation for something as trivial as a phone call. Dave. Sarah's voice was tense. I just checked on the garden. The soil is bone dry. What happened to our water supply? There's been a complication, I said, glaring at Patricia. The HOA had my collection tanks emptied yesterday. What? The kids are coming tomorrow to see their plants. Please tell me we're not going to disappoint 30 second graders. My phone buzzed with incoming text messages. The garden committee members were all starting to notice the problem. I'm working on it, I assured her, though I had no idea what I was going to do. After ending the call, I turned back to Patricia. Look, this is bigger than your rules and regulations. The garden was designed to be sustainable through the drought by using my rainwater system. The kids have been growing those plants for months. I sympathize, Mr. Reynolds, but rules are rules. She didn't sound sympathetic at all. You should have sought proper approval before installing those tanks. Let me explain the system and its purpose. Maybe we can work something out. Patricia's face hardened. The board has made its decision. You have 48 hours to remove those unsightly containers or face a $500 daily fine. As she walked away, her sensible beige heels clicking on the sidewalk, I felt a surge of determination. Fine. If she wanted a fight, I'd give her one. And I knew exactly who to call. So she just had them emptied? Without any real warning? Mike asked, flipping a burger on his grill. My neighbor was a real estate attorney, which I hoped would give me some leverage. Unfortunately, he was also in the middle of hosting a backyard barbecue, wearing a ridiculous kiss the cook apron that made it hard to take his legal advice seriously. Technically, there was a warning, I admitted. A letter delivered yesterday that I didn't read carefully. Rookie mistake, Mike said, waving his spatula at me. Never ignore HOA correspondence. Those people live for this stuff. Can she legally do this? Mike sighed, checking the temperature of a steak. HOAs have pretty broad authority, especially when it comes to visible exterior modifications. But he paused, thinking. Your system might qualify as environmental infrastructure, especially if it's connected to a community project. It is. The community garden. The one with the elementary school kids? I nodded. That's good, really good, actually. Kids and gardens make for sympathetic optics. He handed me a beer. You should check with the city water authority. There might be drought regulations that supersede HOA rules. 2 hours and 17 transferred calls later, I finally reached someone at the city water department who didn't immediately transfer me to another department. So you're saying your HOA drained a rainwater collection system during a Stage 2 drought emergency? The woman on the phone sounded genuinely shocked. That's exactly what I'm saying. And this system supplies a community garden? Yes, one that's supposed to showcase sustainable water practices to elementary school kids tomorrow. There was a pause. Mr. Reynolds, I think you should speak with Councilman Garcia. He serves on our water conservation board. Let me transfer you. Before I could protest another transfer, the line clicked over. Later that evening, I spread my research across my dining room table. Printouts of city ordinances, HOA bylaws, emails from neighbors sharing their own Patricia horror stories. Last year she fined the Hendersons for having a bird feeder, my neighbor Janice had told me. Said it was an unauthorized feeding station. They're in their 80s. The Pattersons had been cited for their wind chimes, the Gonzaleses for a stone pathway that was the wrong shade of tan. And everyone, it seemed, lived in fear of the dreaded lawn measuring day, when Patricia would march around the neighborhood with a ruler, checking grass height down to the quarter inch. I was deep into a city statute about residential water rights when my doorbell rang. It was Tom from down the street, holding a folder. "Heard about your run-in with Hurricane Patricia," he said. "I've got something that might help." Inside the folder was a notice from the city, dated 6 months ago, announcing new protections for water conservation systems during the drought. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "I'm on the city's Environmental Advisory Committee. We pushed for this after the last drought. Residential rainwater systems are protected as long as they're registered with the city." My heart sank. "Mine isn't registered." Tom grinned. "Are you sure about that? Check your email from about 3 months ago. I registered all the systems in the neighborhood as part of our drought preparedness initiative." The emergency HOA meeting the next morning was held in the community center, a beige building that matched Patricia's entire wardrobe. I arrived early, armed with my research and a sliver of hope. By the time Patricia called the meeting to order, the room was packed. News about my tanks had spread, and it seemed like half the neighborhood had shown up. "We're here to address Mr. Reynolds' request for an exemption to Section 12.4, Patricia announced, not bothering to hide her annoyance at the large turnout. I presented my case as clearly as I could, explaining the system, its purpose, the connection to the garden, and the city ordinances protecting water conservation efforts. For a moment, I thought I was getting through to the board members, until Patricia stepped in. "While Mr. Reynolds' intentions may be admirable," she said with a tight smile, "we must consider the precedent this would set. These containers are visible from the street, potentially lowering property values, and could breed mosquitoes or other vermin." "That's not true," I interjected. "The system is fully sealed and filtered." "Furthermore," she continued as if I hadn't spoken, "if we allow one homeowner to install unsightly equipment, where does it end? Air conditioning units on the front lawn? Compost heaps by the mailboxes? Car repairs in the driveway?" By the time the vote came, Patricia had successfully scared the board with visions of neighborhood anarchy. My request was denied 4-1. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds," Patricia said, not looking sorry at all. "The rules exist for a reason." "Yes," I replied, gathering my papers. "The question is whether that reason is good enough to disappoint 30 children and waste thousands of gallons of water during a drought." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps next time you'll consult the HOA before making unauthorized modifications to your property, you tree-hugging troublemaker." A collective gasp went through the room. Patricia seemed to realize she'd crossed a line and quickly adjourned the meeting. As I left the community center, my phone rang. It was the elementary school principal. "Dave, the news crew is here early, and the kids are asking where all the water went." "So this is the rainwater collection system?" The reporter, Alyssa Chen from Channel 12, gestured to my empty tanks while her cameraman adjusted his equipment. "What's left of it?" I replied. 3,000 gallons of collected rainwater, drained away yesterday by order of the HOA. "And this system was designed to supply the community garden during the drought?" I nodded. "It's part of a sustainability project with the local elementary school. The kids have been growing drought-resistant plants, learning about water conservation. They were supposed to showcase their work tomorrow." "And now? Now we're scrambling for solutions. These plants will die without water, and we're in the middle of the worst drought in 30 years. Alyssa looked genuinely concerned. The city has imposed strict watering restrictions. How were you able to collect so much? That's the beauty of the system, I explained, warming to the topic. It captures rainwater from my roof during the occasional storms we get. Instead of that water running into storm drains, it's stored here and slowly released to nurture the garden. It's completely self-contained and sustainable. And the HOA objected because they claim it violates aesthetic standards, that these tanks are unsightly. The interview was going well until a silver Mercedes pulled up and Patricia emerged, marching toward us with the determination of someone about to speak to a manager. "Excuse me," she called out. "This is private property. You can't film here without HOA approval." Alyssa turned, her reporter instincts clearly sensing a new angle to the story. "Are you with the Homeowners Association?" "I'm Patricia Holloway, president of the Meadow Creek Estates HOA." She thrust her hand toward the camera. "Turn that off immediately." The cameraman looked to Alyssa, who shook her head slightly. "Miss Holloway," Alyssa said, "we're doing a story on water conservation efforts during the drought. Mr. Reynolds was just explaining how his rainwater system works, or worked, before it was emptied." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Whatever Mr. Reynolds told you, I can assure you that our HOA has strict guidelines about exterior installations that— So you confirm that you ordered the drainage of a water conservation system during a Stage 2 drought emergency?" Alyssa interrupted. I had to suppress a smile as Patricia realized she'd walked into a public relations disaster. "The HOA was simply enforcing its covenants," she said stiffly. "Mr. Reynolds failed to secure proper approval before installing these unsightly containers." "Interesting," Alyssa replied. "We just spoke with Councilman Garcia, who mentioned that registered rainwater collection systems are protected under the new city drought ordinance. Was the HOA aware of this regulation?" Patricia's face tightened. "This interview is over. You're trespassing on private property." "Actually," I interjected, "they're on my property, and they have my permission to be here." Patricia turned and stormed back to her car, already on her phone. After the news crew left, promising that the segment would air that evening, my phone exploded with notifications. The interview clip had been posted on the station's social media accounts, and #HOA was already trending locally. Meanwhile, I had a more immediate problem. With no water in my tanks, and no time to collect more rainwater, I needed an emergency solution for tomorrow's garden event. I called my old college roommate, Tony, who ran a landscaping business. "You want me to haul how much water? By when?" Tony asked after I explained the situation. 2,000 gallons minimum, by tomorrow morning." "Dave, that's a whole water truck during a drought. Do you have any idea how much that's going to cost?" I winced. "Just tell me you can do it." There was a pause. "For you? Yeah, I can do it, but it's going to cost you." This was going to cost me a month's salary, but those kids' disappointed faces would cost me my soul. "I'll pay whatever it takes," I told him. "Just make sure that garden has water by tomorrow." The next morning, I was at the community garden at 7 a.m., anxiously checking my watch. Tony's water truck was supposed to arrive an hour ago, but he'd texted that he was stuck in traffic. Sarah arrived with the first group of kids at 9 a.m. 30 excited second graders poured out of the school bus, chattering and pointing at their garden plots, blissfully unaware of the water crisis. "Where's the water?" Sarah whispered to me as the kids examined their wilting plants. "On its way," I assured her, checking my phone again. No updates from Tony. I stalled as best I could, giving the kids a tour of the garden design, explaining how the irrigation system worked, or would work if we had any water, and showing them the soil moisture sensors they'd helped install. "Mr. Dave?" A little girl with pigtails tugged on my sleeve. "Why are the plants all droopy?" "Well, Emma, that's..." That's a great question. I knelt down to her level. Sometimes plants get thirsty, just like people. Then why don't we give them water? She asked with the perfect logic of a 7-year-old. Before I could answer, I spotted a silver Mercedes pulling into the parking lot. Patricia had arrived, no doubt to ensure no unapproved water sources were being used. As she approached, clipboard in hand, parents and teachers began to gather. Word had spread about the HOA's role in the water crisis, and the looks directed at Patricia ranged from annoyance to outright hostility. "Mr. Reynolds," she greeted me with forced politeness, "I see you're proceeding with your event despite the complications." "The kids have been working on this garden for months, Patricia. We weren't going to cancel because of your power trip." A few parents murmured in agreement, which seemed to make Patricia uncomfortable. "I'm simply here to ensure that no HOA regulations are being violated," she said, her voice rising slightly. "If you're planning to use any unapproved water sources—" That's when I heard the sirens. Not the water truck. Police cars pulling up right behind Patricia's Mercedes. 2 officers approached our increasingly tense gathering. One was older with a salt and pepper mustache. The other couldn't have been more than 25. "Good morning," the older officer said. "I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Reynolds. We received reports of water theft in this neighborhood." Patricia's face lit up with vindication. "Officer, I'm glad you're here. This man is attempting to circumvent HOA regulations with an unauthorized water system." The younger officer glanced at his notepad. "Are you Patricia Holloway?" "Yes, I am the president of the Meadow Creek Estates Homeowners Association," she replied, straightening her jacket. "We need to speak with you about the unauthorized draining of a registered drought mitigation system." Patricia's smug expression faltered. What?" Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, we received a complaint from the City Water Authority. During a Stage 2 drought emergency, tampering with registered water conservation equipment is a violation of City Ordinance 23.7. "There must be some mistake," Patricia stammered. "Our HOA has clear guidelines about exterior installations, and Mr. Reynolds' tanks were in violation of—" "State law supersedes your covenant, ma'am," Officer Martinez interrupted, "especially during a declared drought emergency." A murmur ran through the crowd of parents and teachers. Patricia's face flushed. "But our HOA covenant clearly states—" "I have the system's registration right here," I interjected, pulling out the papers Tom had helped me locate. "Filed 3 months ago with the City Water Authority as part of the Neighborhood Drought Preparedness Initiative." The officers examined the documents, while Patricia stood in stunned silence. "Everything appears to be in order, Mr. Reynolds," Officer Martinez confirmed. "Miss Holloway, we'll need you to accompany us to discuss the potential penalties for this violation." "Penalties?" Patricia's voice rose an octave. "Unauthorized drainage of a registered conservation system carries a fine of up to $2,000 during a drought emergency," the younger officer explained, "plus potential liability for the replacement cost of the water." As Patricia was processing this information, a large truck rounded the corner of the street. Tony had finally arrived with the water. But what happened next? Nobody could have predicted. As Tony jumped down from the water truck, he froze, staring at Patricia. "Patty," he called out. Patricia turned, her eyes widening in shock. "Anthony?" The crowd watched in confusion as Tony approached. "You two know each other?" I asked. "Yeah," Tony said slowly, not taking his eyes off Patricia. "She's my sister." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Patricia looked like she wanted to disappear. "Your sister?" I repeated, looking between them. They had the same nose, I realized, the same set to their jaw. "Estranged sister," Patricia corrected, regaining some of her composure. "We haven't spoken in—" "How long has it been, Anthony? 10 years?" 12, Tony replied. Not since you reported my landscaping business for excessive water usage to the city. You were watering lawns during water restrictions. I was testing a drip irrigation system that used 70% less water, Tony shot back. I tried to explain that to you, but you wouldn't listen, just like you're not listening now. For the first time since I'd met her, Patricia seemed at a loss for words. Tony turned to me. This is your HOA problem? My sister? I nodded, too stunned to speak. Tony shook his head and laughed without humor. Of course it is. Patty's been on a power trip since we were kids. That's not fair, Patricia protested, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice. While this family drama was unfolding, Sarah approached urgently. I hate to interrupt whatever this is, but some of the plants are already dying. If we don't get water soon, there won't be a garden left to save. Tony immediately shifted into action mode. Right. I've got 2,000 gallons in the truck. Where do you want it? As Tony prepared to unload the water, a surprising thing happened. The parents and teachers began to organize, forming a bucket brigade from the truck to the garden beds. Even some of the kids got involved, carrying small watering cans with careful concentration. Patricia stood apart, watching the community effort with an unreadable expression. Tony approached her after giving instructions to his assistant. You know, Patty, you could help instead of just standing there. This isn't my problem? Tony finished for her. Yeah, I've heard that before. But you know what? Sometimes you need to fix things even when you didn't think they were broken. Something in his words seemed to reach her. After a moment's hesitation, Patricia set down her clipboard and approached Sarah. What can I do? She asked quietly. Sarah, to her credit, didn't miss a beat. We need someone to organize the kids with the watering cans. Make sure they're not overwatering. I can do that, Patricia said. Organization is, well, it's what I do. As the bucket brigade got water flowing to the garden beds, I noticed the news crew had returned, capturing footage of the community working together. Just as we got the water flowing to the garden beds, Patricia approached me with something I never expected to see on her face. A tear. I didn't know about the garden, Patricia said, her voice barely audible above the cheerful chaos of children watering plants. Or the children. I was so surprised by her admission that I didn't immediately respond. I used to have a landscaping business too, you know, she continued. Before Anthony. Drought killed it. 15 years of work, gone in a summer. I didn't know that, I admitted. Nobody does. It's easier to be the villain. She watched as her brother directed the water distribution. Sometimes rules exist for a reason, but sometimes they need to change. The news crew was filming nearby, capturing the revival of the garden. Patricia noticed them and stiffened. They're going to make me look terrible, aren't they? Probably, I agreed. Unless what? Unless you help us make this right. Not just today, but going forward. Patricia considered this. What did you have in mind? By the afternoon, the garden was transformed. Plants that had been wilting hours before were now standing tall. The children ran excitedly between the rows, pointing out their particular plants to parents and teachers. The news crew captured it all, including Patricia's impromptu announcement that the HOA would be forming a new environmental committee to examine how community guidelines could better support water conservation efforts. Miss Holloway, Alyssa asked, microphone extended. This is quite a change from the HOA's position yesterday. What changed your mind? Patricia glanced at her brother, then at the children tending their plants. Sometimes you need to see the bigger picture. These children are learning valuable lessons about sustainability and community responsibility. As HOA president, I should be supporting those efforts, not hindering them. After the news crew left, Patricia approached me with a proposal. Your rainwater system could be a model for the neighborhood. With a few aesthetic modifications, perhaps some decorative panels or strategic plantings, we could make it comply with HOA guidelines while still serving its purpose. You want to help legitimize my water system? I asked incredulously. I want to adapt our guidelines to modern environmental needs, she corrected. If I'm going to be vilified in the media anyway, I might as well deserve it for the right reasons. 3 months later, the community garden had become the pride of Meadow Creek Estates. My rainwater collection system had been expanded, with decorative wooden panels that actually made it look like an intentional architectural feature. 5 other houses on my street had installed similar systems, all with HOA approval. Patricia, true to her word, had spearheaded changes to the HOA covenant, adding environmental amendments that balanced aesthetic concerns with sustainability goals. She now headed the HOA Environmental Committee with the same zealous attention to detail she'd previously applied to measuring grass height, except now she measured water savings. At the neighborhood's Water Conservation Awards ceremony, I watched in amazement as Patricia proudly showed the mayor around our expanded rainwater network. Miss Holloway has been instrumental in transforming Meadow Creek into a model for sustainable suburban living, the mayor told the gathered crowd. As Patricia basked in the praise, I caught Tony giving me a wink from across the garden. Sometimes your worst enemy just needs the right amount of water to grow into something else entirely,